A spate of horrific domestic violence murders raised serious questions about the Queensland Police Service, with allegations police were not taking complaints seriously.
She was just screaming and there's someone standing next to her just giving no response, basically.
You're playing a game of Russian roulette as to whether you're going to get a good police officer or not.
The Queensland Government set up a commission of inquiry 6 months ago. It uncovered what it describes as a cultural aversion to dealing with domestic violence, and it was critical of the leadership of Police Commissioner Katarina Carroll.
No comment, the commission is still sitting. Thank you, guys.
The Commission's final report is scathing, finding clear evidence of a culture of misogyny, sexism and racism, and describing the way Commissioner Carroll handled sexist comments by senior officers as a failure of leadership.
This report is confronting, it is disturbing.
In accepting the Commission's recommendations, Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk pledged an additional $100 million in police resources, but also continued to back her beleaguered police chief.
To bring about the reforms and the cultural change needs a strong woman, and that strong woman is the Commissioner Katarina Carroll.
Police Commissioner, the Premier described you as a strong woman. Are you strong enough to reform the Queensland Police Service?
Yes, I believe that I am. I've spent many years in reform. I spent 4.5 years at QFES undertaking cultural reform. When I came back, I also undertook reform for the first 3 years, and I want to continue that. There is a lot to do into the future. I've looked at the recommendations. There's a lot of work in there, and looking forward to not only reforming but transforming this organisation.
Now, the report you've described as very difficult reading. After you read that report, did you offer your resignation?
No, I believe that I actually have the responsibility to take this on.
Did you consider resigning?
No, I did not. I feel that I have been in this job for 3 years. Reform is difficult. 3 years in cultural leadership, systems reform is not a long period of time. And I believe that I need to finish this reform. And in fact, the resources and the funding that's coming to me as a result of this review will expedite the reform.
Because the reason I asked that question is because the inquiry found widespread perception in the service that its leadership lacks integrity. That's pretty devastating. How do you come back from that?
Yes, it is damning, and it talks about perceptions, and I know that those members that went to the Commission, and there's commentary on this, expected that I and leadership would have done more in the last few years. So I expect that people would think that. And in fact, when I travel and I speak to my people, they will say, Commissioner, but you said you were going to get this in quickly, but 2-3 years, we're still waiting for this.
But the inquiry didn't criticise your leadership and your team in passing. It devoted an entire chapter to it. And if I can quote from it, the QPS leadership is responsible for a culture of fear and silence. It's so ingrained that changing it will be hard to do. Now, that implies that you're part of the problem, are you?
I have always encouraged reporting, and in fact, when I came in, I implemented a system of reporting, particularly around sexism, misogyny, workplace bullying. And what happened in that section, I created a whole new command, the Culture, the Communication Engagement Command. It was struggling because of capacity, relieving positions, uncertainty and consistency. And I actually did a review on that command, and we're about to obviously implement those reviews. So it's not a lack of trying, it's definitely, the reform has definitely commenced.
The Commission also takes you for task for not calling out obscene and sexist comments made by senior members of the service at a conference earlier this year. Why didn't you call that out?
So I did call that out with the individual. I brought that person in.
But not in public, and that was what the Commission was criticising you about.
Yes, and when you look back, and I'll just explain what happened there, I had another matter at the same time with this person. In fact, the outcome was going to be harsher, but the timing didn't align. And when I look back on that, when you look back in hindsight, I believe that you would have definitely dealt with some of those things differently.
Now, I've spoken to families who have lost loved ones as a response, as a result of domestic violence situations where they felt the police didn't respond in an appropriate way. They're still angry with police. Can you understand that continued anger, and what do you say to them?
I can understand that continued anger. I have spoken to some of those people that you were speaking to and apologised to them because they come to us to keep them and their families safe. And in a number of instances where we haven't done that, there has been catastrophic failings in relation to that. We have undertaken relentless reform, and this package of resources and recommendations will take the reform to the next level.
Commissioner, thank you very much.